they've not, walked and looked over an overdose victim's dead body. And they have the syringe still gripped in their hand where they began to overdose, and like the spoon at their feet.
A substance that Michigan lawmakers call gas station heroin will soon be removed from sales.
This should be legal, and this 30-something-year-old person should be able to do whatever they want to. What about their 6 and 7-year-old that's dealing with a high parent every day? Reminds me of the marijuana, THC, CBD thing so much, is because when that
Welcome to the 1334 podcast. Today, Eddie Burgess joins me to talk about Kratom and 7-0. I want to start with the biggest question.
Okay.
How do we stop 7-0?
Well, that's, you're just trying to go for the fences right out of the gate. So the good thing is this issue has already been before the state legislature. It did not get passed. There was a bill that was introduced that was seeking to classify 7-0, and I'm going to butcher the name, but it's the alkaline or the alkaloid name for it. It's the actual chemical makeup of it.
Yeah.
As a Schedule I controlled substance in the state of Georgia. It didn't pass, so it's still technically classified under the regulated products classification, which is any type of consumer product. So to answer your question, I think the way to get some regulation is for people to, number one, get informed and educated on the issue. I didn't know what 7-0 was until we talked initially like 6 weeks ago. I knew what Kratom was, but I didn't know what 7-0 was. So people are going to have to get educated on it, and then if it matters to them, which it should if they understand what it's doing to people, they're going to have to get loud and make their voices heard about it and let their state legislators know that this is an issue that we would like some action taken on.
Can you give me a little bit about your backstory and your knowledge on the drug enforcement side of this?
Sure. So I've been in law enforcement for the last 18 years and some change. I work for the Lee County Sheriff's Office. I'm currently the chief deputy at the Lee County Sheriff's Office, but I have worked in various other roles at the agency. I started off in the jail as a detention officer a long time ago, back in 2008, and I have just worked my way throughout the agency since then. I spent 6.5 years or so in patrol. I was a beat officer or a beat deputy. I just responded to calls and then worked cases, and then I was in supervision towards the end of my patrol career. The last 9.5 years, I have been assigned to narcotics as an investigator, and 8.5 of those years, I was on a DEA Task Force as a task force officer, working federal drug crimes and drug cases, which is kind of unique. You don't see that.
Yeah.
Everybody doesn't have that experience, and the DEA was a really cool opportunity and gave me the ability to travel and to see things not just here locally in Lee County and in Albany, but also throughout the southwestern portion of the state.
Yeah. So from your experience, have you seen other controlled substances like the Kratom 7-0 situation we're seeing now?
So yes, not in the exact format that it's in. Based on the information that I've been able to, educate myself on since I learned what it was, it seems very, in some ways, similar to whenever the marijuana products began to be, whatever word we want to use, they began to tinker with them and start making the different, the gummies and the vapes and the wax and the oil and all of this thing. From what I'm understanding about 7-0 is it's a derivative or a concentrated version of the Kratom leaf powder and the extract from that. So it's concentrated, or it's some sort of synthetic, version of it, meaning that it's just the, chemical makeup of the concentrated version of it made in a lab. So it does kind of mirror the marijuana stuff that we saw back in the mid 2010s on into 2018 when the Farm Bill passed. But based on so I watched Keaton's interview with you. I watched it earlier this week, and it's interesting because I had watched his other interview with you when was that, a year and a half ago or so,
Yeah,
whenever
something
he
like
gave
that.
his full recovery
Yeah.
interview. So my personal involvement and, like, I wouldn't say expertise, but like my experience has been a lot with methamphetamine, heroin, fentanyl. Like, these are the types of cases that I work. Some cocaine, some crack, but mainly meth, heroin, and fentanyl. And when I heard him tell his recovery story and his, addiction story, it was very much like all the, hundreds of other ones that I had heard and doing interviews with, witnesses and suspects and things like that throughout my, drug enforcement work. And so what struck me whenever I listened to him interview with you the other day about this issue was you could tell that he was it was taking him back to that place where he recognized, oh, I've messed with something that is in this same world that I worked very hard to come out of. So, like, my heart went out to him for, recovery's not easy, and he has had a long stint of it sounds like. He's been in recovery for a long time. I think he said 2018 was when he went to the program, and to see that, maybe not even, intentionally your recovery could be derailed by something like that you can just buy off the counter in a curb store, this innocuous looking, is pretty alarming.
And I think there's a really sad aspect of it that it's so easy to get. And you see, I mean, everyone talks about, oh, so-and-so in high school had a fake ID and we got beer. And it's like, well, what if they're doing that with something this dangerous? Because I'm sure you saw a different side of what was it called, the pill mill or something, where the people were just handing out opiates constantly, and I'm sure you saw a whole different side of that. But it looks like this could be the exact same thing.
It has a lot of similarities. So the pill thing was going on around the time that I was graduating high school. That's when that was very popular, and people really started doing the OxyContin and the Percocets and all of those, and the hydrocodone and all that, as far as the opioid pain pills. And then, it was wide open for several years. There were people that were doing something called doctor shopping, where they would travel around to the less regulated states in groups. Like, you would basically have like a courier and like a person who was like the ringleader and the facilitator, and they would gather up a bunch of people and take them to these pain clinics, and sometimes a couple states away, to basically make a big pill run. And they would go obtain a bunch of prescription pain pills, and then they would bring them back, and we call those diverted pharmaceuticals. And so then they would the people who had the prescription would be obligated to give a portion of them to the person who took them on this run. And that's how diverted pharmaceuticals like really became prevalent for street sale, basically, when that whole issue was going on. Regulation came in, it became more difficult for the doctors that were in that pain management business to prescribe them. And so that brings up the point of how the drug trends are always a step ahead of the legislation and the laws on them. So we're always playing catch up to that. And law enforcement is bound by what the legislators and Congress will pass whenever it comes to what is and isn't against the law. And so we may recognize an issue and see it and say, hey, something needs to be done about this, but it may take a while for the politicians to catch up to that and actually do something about it.
Yeah. In Keaton's interview, he mentioned that you could pull somebody over and they could have an open beer and there's an issue, but you see these little tablets or a little Kratom drink and not think anything of it.
Yeah.
Is there something there as far as like driving under the influence of something that is so inconspicuous?
If your question is like whether or not that there's any sort of enforcement that could be done on that if someone's under the influence of it, like, I didn't know what the effects of these drinks had or the pills did until I watched his episode with you and hear him talk about it. And then also I watched a doctor that's done a bunch of research on the 7-OH stuff. He was on Andrew Huberman's podcast. I can't remember his name, but he seemed credible as much as someone can be on the podcast. But based on those two things, and like remember him saying that like you might nod out a little bit. There is a law called DUI drugs, and it will cover that. You also have DUI less safe, which means that someone is operating a motor vehicle in a less safe way, which means they usually had a wreck or something like that, but they're not like over the legal limit of alcohol consumption. Either way, you really have to have some sort of evidence. Like you'd have to have a blood test. Like if someone was, high on fentanyl and driving down the road and they nodded out and had a car crash, which does happen, you'd have to get a blood test on them to be able to say, hey, this is how much fentanyl was in their system and this is the drug that they were high on, so they were DUI. The thing that he mentions, with that about we could pull them over and then see it and not be able to do anything about it is very real. I mean, when you see it for sale at the counter at a gas station, as a law enforcement officer, you don't look at that and go, oh, I need to be on the lookout for this whenever I'm conducting a car stop. It's not on your radar for that.
And I think I've had a lot of conversations with some guys, a coworker, and he was like, I had no idea what this was until you did that podcast.
Yeah.
It's like, that's exactly why I'm doing it.
Yeah.
You could very easily, maybe the drink, maybe because it's less expensive than the tablet, but, end up stumbling into an issue that you didn't even foresee.
Yeah. I knew what Kratom was. And just to kind of go back, like the first time I saw Kratom was probably, I had heard about it in like 14 or 15 probably, like on a podcast. I remember hearing, it was maybe Rogan or somebody was talking about like, oh, this could be the thing that's not Suboxone or something like that to help opiate addicts get off of opiates. And that was just my cursory knowledge of it. And then I saw it searching a house probably in like 2017 or 2018, and initially like it was the leaf ground up, and this was a powder. And at that time heroin was coming in different forms. We had seen a little bit of black tar heroin, we had seen some like granular or powdered form heroin. I've seen it be brown, I've seen it be tan, I've seen it be a variety of different colors, and I actually thought that was what it was at first, but upon further investigation, it's like, oh, this is just somebody's Kratom stash that they had. And they had it in a flip and fold like sandwich bag that's kind of similar to what somebody would keep their drugs in. So it definitely looked weird, but it turns out it was just Kratom. It didn't test for anything. So even that, we didn't know what we were looking at then whenever that came up. But then what's worrisome, I think, about the shots and stuff is it just says energy on it, or it says Kratom energy.
Yep.
And if you don't know what that is, you could legitimately start taking something that's, from what these researchers are saying, it just solely interacts with the opioid receptors, in your body. And now you have turned a switch on. You flip the switch that you can't unflip.
Yep.
So
I saw one at a gas station the other day that said Vivo Focus no 7.0.
Yeah.
I was like, they're even advertising which one has 7.0, which one doesn't.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting because I was like, there's no way that there's one with 701 that doesn't, and they're not explaining why one's better than the other one.
Right.
You're just hoping people know somebody or try them both.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, and it'll say focus, it'll say, all kind of stuff. And
Zen was one of them.
Yeah. And it's kind of interesting, like, I remember you talking about the energy drink, like I have an energy drink, issue too. I could see somebody just grabbing that. It's like, oh, this is a new energy drink that I didn't know. And it says, oh, it has focus in it, or, something like that. And winding up, oh, this is good. And like if I find a new energy drink that I like, I tend to, stick with it.
Yeah.
And so if you drink, one of these things every day for a month, you've definitely put yourself in a position to become, addicted or, dependent on them and not even, realize it. So
I was driving through Moultrie the other day, and there was a gas station that had a whole bunch of them, the little shots of 7.0 right next to where all the 5-hour energies used to be.
Like right at the counter.
Right
area.
at the counter.
Yeah.
I think I was getting a Gatorade or something, and I was like, I very easily could have just it says focus on it, but I know that it says Kratom on it, so it's like, it's advertised as some sort of natural, organic, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and It kind of, and that's what I was going to say, that it reminds me of the marijuana, THC, CBD thing so much, is because when that first became like acceptable to sell this stuff in Georgia, you saw just these products explode, and they were in all kinds of different forms. On the more, I would say, nefarious side, you would see it in very similar packaging to like traditional candies that were very popular, like Starburst and Skittles. I saw like weed Dorito adjacent chips one time. It looked like a bag of Cool Ranch Doritos, but it was like these chips are, contain concentrated THC, so you can get high. And I remember when people would say the things like, oh, it's a crazy thing to think that drug dealers are trying to trick kids into, taking drugs accidentally for the first time by, marketing it to them as something that's like candy. But what do you call that?
Yeah.
Why make it in that, with that branding signature, if you're not trying to get, at least people who wouldn't maybe otherwise do that. So it's just marketing, it's just supply and demand and marketing in some ways. But I do think that there is a discussion to be had about that, about the way that it's marketed, about warning labels. And usually, like I said, the lawmakers are slower to catch up to the actual issue. It's like a triage problem.
Yep.
And so by the time that they do want to do something about it, a lot of the damage has already been done. And also the people who, are making these things and selling these products and profiting from them, they've already got their next idea, up their sleeve for whatever it is that they're going to do next.
And Keaton told me, I don't remember if he said it on the podcast or not, but he said that they've already developed a more potent 7.0. I think he was saying it was 10.0 or something like that.
Wow.
There's a new version of it that is coming out that I don't know if it's in Georgia yet, but even if they outlaw 7.0, you still have other issues.
So that kind of reminds me of they called it synthetic marijuana or spice, and it was a green leafy, plant material substance, but when they would say that it was synthetic marijuana, the effects of it were actually more like crack cocaine, what people reported at least. And it was, it was available in the same way this is in gas stations. Bath salts, I don't know if you remember whenever the bath salt craze and like people were going and acting crazy and stuff like that. I was in patrol whenever that happened, and we did see that a lot. And it looked like a little candy Pop Rocks thing that you would see. It just looked like that, and people would have it in their pocket. And, it took a year or two for the lawmakers to catch up and, put that on the scheduled list. But really bad stuff, it's, you don't know what you're getting. There's no, quality control whenever it comes to this. It's just not, I think people just in general have a very bad understanding of the way that even illicit drugs are actually transported and manufactured and all of that sort of stuff. There's a lot of cross-contamination issues. Like, it's not like they're all in there in like white lab coats trying to ensure, we need to make sure that the fentanyl doesn't touch the cocaine. If it does, so be it. They don't care. And that's why you have accidental overdoses. You can't regulate your way out of the issue as far as saying, we can make this safe, because somebody's going to find a way to skirt around whatever the regulation is. You really do have to have a combination of regulation and enforcement, and actually have people, you have to have available law enforcement people to even go out and do this. And I mean, I can tell you that while checking, these gas stations, I mean, how many gas stations are there, in the greater Albany area that all carry these products?
There's 9 on 19 in Lee County.
Right. Okay, so
there's a ton of them. They're everywhere. So,
and I will say that we do compliance checks, spontaneously and routinely. The last time that we did one, I was happy. It was after we had done a smoke shop case, and so I'm sure that was probably prompting some compliance, before we actually made it to do the check. But I think we only found one that was actually had any kind of THC products that they shouldn't have. So that was good. Yeah. But it's something that you have to stay on. If you don't, people are gonna, they make money off of it. So why wouldn't they sell it?
And I've had some people in my comments just so mad.
Oh yeah,
about,
you touched the landmine.
Yeah, I had no idea because I was like,
Yeah.
I'm looking out for the everyday person. Like I want to
I know.
either help a family or help somebody like you and I.
Yeah. Oh
And
no, you're a tyrant. You're
but
just yeah.
but and there was one
Yeah.
guy. He was like, I was on the verge of being homeless when I was doing heroin, but I found 7-0, and I was like, now I can go to my job, and it's like, that's not a real solution.
No, it's not. People love their drugs. Like, I don't just mean people as in all of human history, people have been using mood-altering, mind-altering substances, as far back as alcohol has been around since, obviously the Bible is talked about a lot. And then, there's tons of evidence to show that people long before us were using substances. And people get very defensive about that and very emotional. So I try to look at it like, if you can do your best to remove the emotion from it, is you've got one extreme that says that you should be able to do whatever you want to. This is like the high individual liberty people that you can do whatever you want to as long as it doesn't hurt. It's usually with the caveat, as long as it doesn't hurt someone else. So we should come back to that because that's interesting, at least from a philosophical and like a law, perspective. And then you have the people that say, like, we should, regulate and prohibit everything, like no sugar. But obviously, neither of these extremes makes a whole lot of sense. The problem with it doesn't harm. You can do whatever you want as long as, it doesn't harm anyone else. I get it. I think that if someone's making that argument and they're making it in good faith, which means that they're not trying to just, push some, political agenda that they know is wrong for whatever reason, they say that out of ignorance because they've not seen the types of things that I've seen. Whenever it comes to drugs, they've not, walked and looked over an overdose victim's dead body, and they have the syringe still gripped in their hand where they began to overdose, and like the spoon at their feet. They hadn't had to talk to the mom or the dad, or they hadn't had to talk to their kid who, is standing over their dead parent. So that argument is void at this point. Like we've had many years now of the opioid crisis and the overdose crises, and you generally won't find someone who's not been touched personally by that, either by a friend or a family member, and myself included. So they've just not seen those things. They've not seen the conditions that people wind up living in when their parents are involved in drug trafficking or drug distribution. And, now they're gone. Maybe they're gone for, a prison sentence, and dad or mom's not there. Maybe both of them aren't there. It has second and third order consequences for everyone that individual touches, including the strangers that they sell this stuff to.
Yep.
And I know that since 7-0 isn't regulated, like as far as a controlled substance right now, like we don't look at the gas station as the drug dealer. But if it turns out, and we'll find out at some point, like in when enough research is done on this, if it turns out that this was just some sort of like synthetic, Percocet pill or whatever, and which was funny because Keaton did say, one of them was labeled like Perks or whatever, which if you're in drug enforcement, that means like, opiate pain pills, which were very, very popular and expensive whenever that was a thing. That's meant for the sole purpose of attracting opiate addicts.
Yep.
I mean, how should we think about that? It's kind of similar to like marketing these products in candy packages. Like, who are you trying to advertise to? So that's my harsh judgment of it. And then a more realistic view is that you have to have the laws and the lawmakers supporting you doing some enforcement on it. You have to have prosecutors that are willing to prosecute it, and then you have to have law enforcement that is knowledgeable and also has the bandwidth and the time to go and address it. The compliance things are pretty easy. Usually once you do a round of compliance checks, like if they were to say 7-0 is illegal, starting October 1st, it's kind of similar to what they did to some of the marijuana products. They gave them like a 2.5 month grace period to get rid of the products that they had on the shelves, and then we gave it like another week or two or something like that after the deadline of the grace period, and then we went and did a compliance check. There wasn't any, at least out, that we could see.
Yeah.
And the good faith people are going to take it off the shelves. The people who are, not so refined in their morals are going to do other things.
So I spoke with a senator for Georgia, and I mean, first he acted like I was a complete and total waste of his time.
So how did you get in touch with him? Did you call him up? Did you send him an email, or how'd that work?
I got his phone number from a friend of mine.
Okay.
He was like, I have this guy's number, call him.
Okay.
I said, okay, cool. Called him, and
I want to know who off camera, by the way.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Okay. I'll let you know.
Okay.
I spoke with him, and he was essentially like, well, why didn't, because I started with, there's this gas station opiate that we need to stop.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, what's it called? And I said, it's 7-0. He said, I don't know what that is. I said, it's Kratom 7-0.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, well, yeah, we're trying to pass this Kratom thing now. And I said, well, what about the synthetic? I said, the 7-0 and the synthetic versions are really the issue.
Yeah.
He said, I don't know, man. Let me go. So we were on the phone for, I believe, 2 minutes and 50 seconds.
Oh, wow.
It was very quick.
Impressive.
And so he had no idea what the synthetic stuff was. And immediately I was like, this is an issue.
Yeah.
If he's supposed to be voting on this kind of thing,
Yeah.
and has absolutely zero knowledge,
Yeah.
we could have a bigger issue than.
So, yeah, I agree. So we'll be as generous as we can be to him, and maybe he just legitimately doesn't know what it is.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
When I told my wife what you and I were going to be talking about today, she was like, she didn't know what Kratom was, and she certainly didn't know what 7-0 was. So, but she would have no reason to, like. And I, like I said, if I didn't, work in drug enforcement for as long as I have, I might not know what it is. There's a lot of people too that just, they don't go in gas stations. Like, being a patrol cop for as long as I was, like, we kind of lived in the gas station because that's where you ate, at midnight.
I drive for a living. Yep.
Yeah. So certain people in the population are a little bit more, in tune with what the inside of, your standard curb store looks like, and all curb stores are not the same. The Wawa is not the same as the one that you find out, in the middle of nowhere, 30 miles outside of town.
I know where the rain is in just about every one of them.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You find out where your product is, and you just kind of go in there and you get it. So maybe he just doesn't know anything about it. Maybe he should educate himself, especially if he's going to be voting on something.
Yes.
There's that bandwidth issue. Like, you only have so much time to learn what it is. But that's why I say that it's important for people to get involved. Like, I commend you for actually taking the initiative to talk to someone, that's in the legislature, because most people, as soon as, that's like the barrier to entry for folks, is to say, you should write your congressman. That's kind of the old joke. Like, we would kind of tell people that sometimes, even if they had like a complaint about a law, maybe you're, having to arrest someone. We used to say it all the time for, marijuana back in the day. They would, and then they did it. And we'd be like, I can't believe you arrested me, for this. Like, oh, if you don't like it, write your congressman, because that's who did it. Like, we didn't write the law.
Yeah.
But that's a two-way street. They need to know what the people that they represent and who their constituents want, or what their constituents want them to do whenever they're up there, in session. And if they don't know about something, they can't do anything about it. A lot of people think that the comment section on Facebook is the way that you get politicians' attention. And that's why I commend you for actually taking the initiative to make a phone call or, try to reach out in person, is because that's just not the way that change is affected. That's the way that people blow off steam and make themselves feel better and, righteous and like they've done something. The comment section on Facebook or Twitter or YouTube or whatever platform you want to use is not the way that change is brought. That happens by concerned citizens caring enough to show up, to make official complaints. Local government, there's a lot of things that your local government can do, being your, commission. I'm not necessarily on this issue, but on other issues that folks have, they care deeply about. But when you go to these meetings, a lot of times you just don't see anybody there other than the people that are participating in them.
Yep.
And so it's a lot of people have a lot of opinions, and they don't, want to put their money where their mouth is and actually get involved and get invested. Right, wrong, or indifferent. Like, it's just worst case scenario is you understand the process a little bit better.
Yep.
So
I was speaking with a local nonprofit that does anti-human trafficking work, and they are seeing the 7-0 be a huge issue
I can imagine
some of the situations that they're in.
Younger people, I would imagine.
Yep.
Yeah, like teenagers. It's not as scary as like actual, fentanyl or something like that.
Yep.
So I could see 100% how that
it's
could be. It's
becoming a big issue for them.
Yeah.
Here in Albany. And then there's also, or Albany and Lee County, really both.
Sure.
But then there's also the situation where you have people that I've seen overdoses online of 7-0 and how they're taking too much for too long or too much at once. And
But younger people or just people in general?
People in general, kind of both.
Yeah.
But then
did Keaton say if he knew someone that had actually overdosed on it? And
I don't think he knows anyone personally.
I know he said that like he knew other people that had to go to treatment or had reached out for help to detox off of it.
Yep.
So that alone tells you how strong and potent it is.
Yep. And him saying that you need to go find somebody. Like, that's the whole reason we started talking about go to the Anchorage, go to Aspire, go to some of these organizations that can get you some help.
Right.
Because even he was talking about, and I've had people in my comment section like, well, what do you want me to go do? Get Subox, whatever.
Yeah, Suboxone.
And you want me to go get that or whatever? It's like, well, you have to get off of it somehow.
Yeah.
And it's whatever means you need. You need to try to find help in a way that you're not going to withdraw and die from it. Because his friend that nearly died, the only reason he was alive was because of the medical staff that was there as he was withdrawing.
Okay. Did he say that on the podcast, or did y'all talk about that offline?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
But
he may have. I don't remember that.
He mentioned that his blood pressure was...
That's right. He said his blood pressure spiked
and
really bad.
I think he told me off camera, but essentially he was on the verge of dying for about a week or 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And it was like just withdrawing alone almost killed the guy.
Yeah. Well, if you see someone on opiates have to go through withdrawals, like you can immediately you understand why they don't do it. You understand why they would rather stay high. Is because it looks awful. So you have that, and if this stuff is doing the same thing, and you can buy it off the counter at a gas station, I mean, that's definitely alarming.
Especially if it's deemed legal.
Right. Yeah, and another thing that kind of struck me with him that I think he should be commended on is like a year and a half ago, he's in here telling his recovery story, which is like a victory, and it was very encouraging. And so, he humbled himself to come back on here and talk about, okay, look what else I had to deal with, on the heels of that. So when you look at him having, and if anything, he could have faced some backlash for even talking about it, or people saying, "Oh man, look at you weren't able to stay sober," or something like that. But having the, having the courage to get out and talk about that, I thought was also striking of how serious of an issue it is, because he's got no motivation to talk about it other than to try to sound the alarm about it.
Yeah, and that was his whole thing. He was like, it's too dangerous for him to not say something, which I feel like speaks a lot to how bad it actually is.
Yeah.
So do you think there's something, if somebody's listening now, and other than telling people, hey, try to avoid this, is there something that we can start doing now to see a little bit of change? I
think if we're talking about like how do we get younger people maybe to not experiment with these things, is to talk about it and like talk to your teenagers, tell them what it is. One of the most important things, like as a parent, that you can do is just be like present and involved in your kid's life, especially whenever they're teenagers. Like I have a 12-year-old going to be 13 soon. They're not at an age where they want you to be all up in their business. And so a lot of parents, I think, just kind of naturally will retreat a little bit there because they're trying to they need space or whatever. That's not what they need. Okay, they're going to do dumb stuff. If you give them space, that's just more space to do stupid stuff. So being involved, and as much as it might pain you, because their popular culture is just sometimes so stupid that you can't even bear it whenever they're telling you about it. But like, take the time to listen to what it is, because they may tell you something, inadvertently, because they don't even know that there's anything necessarily wrong with it. And you may go, oh, that's some pitfall that you're about to fall into, and you can do something about it. And then now that we know that this is an issue, I think it's important for people to talk about it and to try to get people's attention about it. So what you're doing is a big deal and is going to be helpful there. I mean, we have local government, and even whoever the senator that you talk to, I mean, he's part of the local government if he's in the state legislature. And so these people have publicly available email addresses and phone numbers. They have assistants and folks that read their email and all that. You can say something about it, and then maybe they want to do something about it, and they just have not yet gathered the political will to actually make a stand and do it.
Yeah.
Just because somebody does not yet have the political will to do that doesn't mean that they can't gain it, but they're not going to gain it unless they feel like they have people's support to go do it, because nobody wants to be the person to stand up in front of a crowd with what they think is a really good idea and just to be shot down and humiliated. For them, it sometimes means that they don't win re-election. I mean, they have a lot of things that they have to think about, and so they make calculated decisions about what laws they support and what they don't. So the more people that they hear from is important. I think folks that have had people in the if they had family members or friends or people who have been affected by the opioid crisis and the epidemic, maybe overdose victims, if they could reach out and say, hey, like I heard this guy talk about this on this podcast, and it sounded just like what my son told me before he overdosed and died.
Yep.
Like, those personal and individual stories really drive it home, because people get cynical about things. But when you localize it and you really bring it down to the level of the individual, if you sit across from a mom who maybe had some enabling habits, or didn't do the best job every time as a parent, but their adult kid overdosed and died in their home, there's no way that your heart just doesn't break for them whenever you're sitting there talking to them. And people have a really hard time not finding sympathy with someone on the individual level. So I would just encourage people to share those like individual stories.
Yeah. And I think it's a really good reminder that I see a lot of people talking about this issue as a economy issue.
How so? What do you mean?
Oh, they just want your money. They want you to go through the government. They want you to buy it legally. They want this and that.
That's like the straw man argument. Yeah, you're talking about in the comment section, right?
Yeah, but I see it all the time with all sorts of other stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, well, like even the legalizing weed. Oh, they just wanted it to be through the government so they can make money. But at the end of the day, it's a person's life on the line.
Well, two things can be true at once.
Yeah.
And it can be true that, if you are taxing something, that the government is going to get a portion of those proceeds. But it's also true that when you're not taxing it, all of that is going, into someone's pockets, and they're not paying any taxes on it. They're still spending money and doing stuff with it, and you can't trace it. You don't know what's going on with it. That's a broader conversation. We could do another one and like talk about like narco-terrorism and money laundering and where the actual money from drug trafficking goes.
I would love to know that.
Yeah, so that's super interesting. It was one of the things that I became somewhat versed in whenever I was at DEA, and it's pretty illuminating to see how that actually works and what the cash cows are and what they aren't. So I think that the economic side of it is kind of a straw man, and it also reveals what someone's priorities are, because that means that you care more about the money and less about the individual that's having to go through the experience. And I think if anybody can't find it in their heart to say, oh, I think that, this should be legal and this 30-something-year-old person should be able to do whatever they want to. Well, what about their kids?
Yeah.
What about their 6 and 7-year-old that's dealing with a high parent every day? Those are individual responsibility issues too.
Mm-hmm.
That person needs to deal with themselves. But I mean, whose side are we on here? Are we on the side of extreme individual liberty to the point that children are to suffer for it? And that was my point in saying they haven't seen the things that I've seen.
Yeah.
They haven't gone into a house that has no working electricity in it, but it has an extension cord ran from a block over with 7 power strips hooked up to it. It's a huge fire hazard. Mm-hmm. And then there's 6 children under the age of 7 running around in there. And it's like today, it's 104 degrees outside and there's no air conditioner and there's just box fans.
Yeah.
That's where individual personal liberty in the extreme will get you, is to look at that and go, well, these are their choices.
Mm-hmm.
This is fine. Just leave them alone. So, but there's a balance there.
You have to, in a political sense, I tend to lean more towards individual liberty personally.
Yeah, me too.
But I don't identify with anybody really, because I think every single edge of the spectrum, they're all kind of dumb, and it all drives me absolutely nuts. Yeah. But that being said, there comes a point where at some point you have to protect somebody. You can't, it's not a free-for-all.
No. And those same people, the extreme individual liberty people, will sometimes make the argument, well, you can't legislate morality. Well, of course you can. Like,
that's what it's for.
Look what every single one of our laws say. Like, you can't murder. It's against the law. That's morality.
Yep.
There's a lot. I mean, that's just one of the easiest ones to just kind of nail down off the rip. But
even if I'm probably wrong. I think it's Leviticus, where they lay down the laws, and he starts laying out this is this, and that he's creating laws for morality.
Yeah.
And then you see in Judges, that's what I'm reading now.
Yeah.
And
that's a fun read.
Yeah. And every single chapter, somebody is screwing up another side of they're not listening to this law, or they're not doing that. And you see it slowly begin to deteriorate. And you would see that if you start taking away some laws and let people do whatever they want. And
we tried that about 5 years ago across the nation. It didn't work out too well.
No.
A bunch of cities burned down, and it wasn't great.
No,
the record level property damage, and somebody had to pay for that.
Yeah,
not the people who tore it up, but somebody did.
Didn't quite work.
No. Reality always reinserts itself in the end, and so you can tinker around with it quite a bit and not experience immediate consequences. I like to think about it like a super thick rubber band, and I don't even mean like a lawnmower belt style rubber band. It's like a super thick, it's pliable, you can stretch it way out, but there's no chance that you're going to break this thing. And for as far as you stretch it out, you're going to get a equal reaction from it. And so the further you go into stupidity, the stronger the consequences are that you're going to find.
Yep.
And the individual liberty thing, I remember hearing Jordan Peterson say something to the effect of, I'm going to butcher it, but it's something like that, like my rights are your responsibility. And we each have that kind of social contract with each other.
Yeah.
And so it means, like, if we're neighbors and we want to be good neighbors to one another, like, part of that means that you have the right not to be, disturbed or, accosted on your own property and enjoy your own property the way that you want to. But it doesn't mean that you get to, have a 10-foot tall stack of PA monitor speakers and play guitar directed at my house for 12 hours a day.
Yep.
Because, it's your right to play guitar there, but it's your responsibility not to, infringe upon my rights at the same time. So it's a give and take. And it ends up coming into play whenever you're talking about, making laws, because you do want to, who are we protecting is really what I think it boils down to. And I think oftentimes we can lose sight of what like the actual goal is whenever it comes to lawmaking. And it needs to, they say that a law that isn't enforced isn't a law. It's just something that's written down. And if a law doesn't have any enforcement mechanism behind it, it's meaningless. But laws should be simple, understandable, and achieve the stated goal of the law.
Yeah.
And so if it doesn't achieve the stated goal of the law, and then it has second and third order consequences that are opposed to the stated goal of the law, it's probably a bad law.
And for me, as far as this goes, like, I have recorded and spoke on camera and off camera with enough people that have their own recovery story, to know that laws don't stop people from doing what they want to do.
No.
And if you outlaw 7-0 or Kratom or all of it, it's not going to stop the use. However, it will protect the innocent people that have no idea what they're around.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to push back a little bit. So it won't stop it. It can deter it, though. And so a lot of times laws are there. People don't not murder, typically. What does Shane Willard say? He's like, reasonably, good-hearted and reasonably, like, mentally healthy people.
Yeah.
That's who we're talking about when we make these, like, baseline assumptions. But people don't not murder because it's against the law. They don't murder because it's morally wrong.
Yeah.
They also make the calculation that there's consequences to this if I get caught, and they're strong. So that's my only pushback on it, is like law enforcement wise, especially in drug enforcement, we look at the three different things that we're trying to achieve. We're trying to dismantle. So if we have something, then we can, reasonably make this thing not exist anymore. So we have a drug trafficking group. You can disrupt, dismantle, or you can, what was the word that I used a minute ago? You can
deter,
dismantle, disrupt. Those are your three things that you can do. And sometimes any of those are a good solution.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can deter something without having to get in and like expend more resources to, make it stop, I mean, you've achieved voluntary compliance. This is good.
Yep.
This is good for everybody. This is good for the taxpayer. This is good for the people involved because they don't have consequences, like legal consequences. It's good for law enforcement because they can spend their time doing things that are, more pressing. But can you stop it? No, it's whack-a-mole.
Yeah, exactly.
It really is. So, but it could be that whack-a-mole is the best that we're going to get this side of heaven.
Yep.
And so I think like expectations management is important. So when people do the war on drugs, I don't know that that's a good like framing of it. I mean, it makes for good headlines. It's super dramatic sounding and gets people fired up in one direction or the other. But it's not what's actually going on there. We're trying to stop a particular thing that's going on, and that will pivot to something else, and then we'll try to stop that. But if you don't do anything, that's why I say it may be the best that we get this side of heaven. To do nothing, it's like you're guaranteed horrific consequences for doing nothing. And that was my point about how we treated laws, 5 and 6 years ago, where they just like, do what you want to. You can take over a police department in Seattle or do whatever you want to do. It's like we've got the evidence of that experiment, and it wasn't even long ago.
Yeah.
Like do nothing is not a option. And I hope people realize that, because if they don't, the only way for you to realize that is for that very, elastic rubber band to finally pop back.
Yep.
And then that's when you get, really extreme consequences.
Yeah. I read a book about essentially it's about the periodic table and the history of the periodic table.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that we didn't understand germs, viruses, or diseases or anything until I think it was 1968.
Yeah.
And at that point we'd already been flying planes. Like we've done a lot.
Yeah, it's wild.
And I think we had multiple types of helicopters, and now we're finding out about germs.
Yeah.
And it's it's maybe it's a hard analogy, but that's what that reminded me of, because like we're slowly finding out more and more, because think of all that's changed in the last 60 years.
Yeah.
For soaps to toothpastes to all these other, we even have vaccines. We have all sorts of different stuff, but 60 years ago we didn't know what any of it was to begin with.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is the same situation, like to a certain extent, to where you have whatever drug started all of this in 60s or 70s, and now you're slowly getting more, and we're getting further and closer to kids and everybody being protected. But at the same time, it just looks different than it used to.
Well, and like, to be fair to the Kratom favorable community, or whatever they call themselves, Kratom, the plant, the leaf, or whatever, has been around for forever. It's from Southeast Asia, and the people who live there have been using it, medicinally, and whatever that word is, like homeopathically themselves, for forever. And they were chewing it, when they were working for energy boost and focus. And then it's interesting because apparently if they take it in small doses, it's a stimulant, and it gives focus, apparently. And if you take it in high doses, I guess, like if you chew a bunch of leaves, then it makes you tired and you can kind of like party on it or something. It was like the campfire ritual that they would use, like getting done whatever they were doing during the day, which is kind of interesting about it. But it's not like probably those people who first started chewing this leaf, whenever that became a thing, were like, hey, we're going to get, blasted off of this leaf that I found. They were probably just trying not to starve. And just found it by happenstance or something like that. So, like, that's the thing, and that's the thing with other drugs too. Cocaine was in Coca-Cola. The opium was just like a drink or whatever back in the 1800s. Like they drank it in saloons and stuff like that because. They had people shot and people were in pain, and everybody was dying left and right, and it's been a lot of changes since then. And then a lot of times people just wake up and go, "Oh, this isn't good for us anymore. Maybe we shouldn't use this."
Yeah.
I mean, cocaine's still available in certain medical conditions, depending on what someone's going through, and so is heroin or opium, morphine, all that kind of stuff. So. And that's what the schedules mean, basically. Schedule 1 basically says that a substance has no medicinal value at all. And then the other ones, graduate down, and Schedule 4 has a lot more legitimate medicinal purpose than like Schedule 2, which is where methamphetamine is. So that's why I said, like, when some time passes by this and people have more clarity about the issue, it'll be interesting to see where the legitimate, like, medical opinions arrive about what's good about this and what isn't.
I spoke with a medical professional locally, and he was talking about how he has people coming in that are using 7-0 and Kratom regularly, that were prescribed it from a homeopathic type of person. Yeah. And now they're dealing with issues and having to withdraw from it.
Yeah.
And I think it would be easy to, it's an honest thing. Personally, I want to not take medicine for as long as I can.
Oh, yeah, me too.
But then again, there is some truth to, if I chop both of my legs off, please give me morphine. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're going to want morphine immediately.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're going to love it whenever they give it to you because you're going to need it.
Yeah, exactly. But I think at the same time, we need more research done on this, because we have to know where it actually lies. And I think people hopefully cannot get their emotions involved too much, and we can see positive change to help some of these people that really need it.
Yeah. I've interviewed a lot of people during my drug enforcement work where they had no intention of becoming a drug addict or an opiate addict or a drug dealer. It's just they were in construction. They fell off the roof while they were framing a house. They did something to their back, or they did something, to some other body part. The doctor gave them opiates for pain management until they could get, healed and get back on their feet. They took, 30 or 60 days worth of prescribed opiates from a doctor, and they go to stop taking them, and then they've got a physical dependence on it. And so so you have to be careful, It doesn't excuse them deciding, like, hey, instead of dealing with this personal issue that I've gotten into, maybe through no fault of my own, instead of dealing with this, I'm just going to become a pill dealer. It doesn't excuse that, but it does at least, draw a reasonable conclusion as to why it happened.
Yeah.
And so not everybody that winds up in that world intended on getting there. And I think a lot of people probably didn't. It's like a slow, it's a slow decline and a slow process.
I think the majority of people I've spoken with never intended to be where they were.
Sure.
But it was, I can't remember the saying, but essentially one thing leads after the other, and you end up where you are.
Yeah.
And I spoke with one person. They were saying that they started with alcohol. Someone they knew was dealing, and they started using pills. And then somebody offered them meth, and they were like, I'm not going to shoot that. But they started mixing it into their coffee. And it's like, just one thing leads after the other, and no one ever intends to be where they are, but it just comes down to what you're saying, the personal, accountability of it. And hopefully somebody's blessed enough to have the right people around them to say the right thing at the right time.
And that's important. There's a lot of people don't want to even talk about that with somebody whenever they're going through it. People get defensive about it. It's not like folks are proud of it whenever they have some sort of significant addiction issue. And so it can be very difficult for people who legitimately care about this person to effectively talk to them about it in such a way that might prompt some change out of them. And that's a sad story to talk to, the people who are left behind if they're not with us anymore. It's like, I wish that I'd have talked to them about it. I wish I'd have done more. You always hear that. I wish that I would have just grabbed them, by the collar and drug them to rehab. And that's that person trying to cope with the grief. The reality is, unless they want to go, like what Keaton talked about, he got tired of living that life. I remember him. I think he said his grandmother or someone like drove him into the facility, or he was living with her, and it's like he just got tired of the life that he was living, and it had gotten sufficiently miserable to him. And he decided to make a personal change. And that's why his story is somewhat rare as opposed to all the people who just never make it out of that.
Yep. That everyone reaches their own rock bottom.
Yeah, and it's at a different level. Rock bottom's not a static location that everyone reaches at the same time. It's an individual thing that folks have to go through.
Yep. Well, thank you for your time. Is there anything you want to add?
Dude, God bless you for doing stuff like this. They're going to roast us in the comments, just
Absolutely.
So you know. We're going to get hammered. So buckle up. It's going to be fun.
You have a thick skin, right?
Yes. I
thought so.
I've developed it. I'm okay. My feelings do not get hurt easily.
I laugh so hard at some of these.
Yeah.
Like, dude.
Oh, they're going to come for us.
I'm like, I had a fifth grader when I was in fifth grade say a whole lot worse stuff than what you're saying right now, dude. Yeah. It's okay. Like,
I will commend you too. You didn't respond to them, which is smart. Like, you responded to a couple people that were commenting in good faith. And I think always the litmus test is this person acting in good faith, or are they just trolling to troll?
Yeah.
And if you're trolling to troll, it's like, I just don't have time to fool with you. You got to be a good troll. Like, you got to be like next level troll.
If they're really good, I will troll back.
Game. Yeah,
sure.
Of course, because
you have to at that point.
Well, there's style points, involved at that point, and maybe you're better than they are. But the drug-loving masses are going to come after us, and it's going to be fun.
There were some of them where I was reading it and just legitimately heartbroken. And I was like...
Oh, yeah, that they believe it and that they feel
I was like, I just wish that you could experience some of the things that my friends have, you know?
Yeah. That's back to the things, like, you just hadn't seen what I've seen. I've seen so many overdose victims. I'm talking about dead people that are just clenching a syringe in their hand, and they're on their parents' bathroom floor or something. Their mom has to find them, or their kid stepping over them, or what. We can go on forever. Having to watch people go off to federal prison because they just would not stop selling drugs, and their children are in the courtroom watching dad go away, and they're going to be like 40 when he gets out. And it's like, you tell me that as long as they're not hurting anybody else. And so two things can be true at once. We can say that there's no good solution to this.
No,
it's all bad. There are better solutions and worse solutions, and we should be trying to find what the better ones are and not work towards the bad ones.
Yeah. Do you have any organizations that you would recommend somebody reach out to as far as if they need help withdrawing, or if they need to recommend an organization to somebody?
I'm going to mirror what Keaton said, the Anchorage and now Motif. Did I say it right? Is it Motif?
Yeah, Motif.
Yeah. What a blessing it is to have a female facility in Albany. Those are both great. I know that we have Aspire. The sheriff's office actually partners with Aspire. They do our services as far as our recommendations.
Oh, cool.
That people that come through our court system typically go there, and that sort of thing too. Anything is better than nothing. I'm going to recommend a faith-based program because God's real, and just because your circumstances seem like they're unmovable, like he can do that. He can move mountains, he can part waters, he can do the whole thing. My experience when I see when God does kind of miraculous stuff in people's life, it's as soon as they get some buy-in. So he's just kind of waiting to see, like, are you committed to this or not? And I've just seen it multiple times where people do have some personal accountability and some personal buy-in, and then it's off to the races. Then they have to stay involved. Like we were doing a small group a while back, and Rebecca and I were leading it. I noticed a young lady in there that I had dealt with, like during my drug enforcement stuff, on the professional level. She was somewhere that I had to take some enforcement action, and she was not happy with me that day. And so it's kind of awkward because we're leading this small group. There's like 30 people in the room. And I was assuming that she remembered me. I mean, you people kind of remember, that day in their life. And I recognized her, but I didn't want to. If you're leading small group, you just want to be there for that and not, like, I'm not Sheriff's Office Eddie in that moment. She came up to me after the fact, and she's like, I just want to thank you for changing my life. She's like, you did what you did that day. I wasn't happy about it, but you literally changed my life. And she told me about all the good things happening to her. And it really just kind of knocked me back, because we never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
We do what we're doing, and then it's over with, and you're just kind of hoping for the best. And sometimes it's just so bad that you're like, this person needs to go. They need to go to prison. They need to stay there. They need to not get back out. It's fine. But a lot of times you're like, man, I hope that person, gets their life together. And when I was doing enforcement stuff a lot and dropping people off at the jail, a lot of times whenever I would get done, I'd say, good luck to you. And I would sincerely mean that. Like, if my case on you goes away and I don't, get a guilty conviction, but you get your life together, I'm happy about that. And later on, I'd just say, look, God bless you. If I'd recommend you come to church. And I invite them to our church. And I've had people show up. So our church is great, like Grace City. If you're looking for a place in the greater Albany, Lee County area, there's a home for you at Grace City Church.
Yep.
And there's people there that are interested in being a part of your story and helping you. And there's just a community of people that want to see other folks win.
Yep.
And that's unique.
And somebody in there has walked through a very similar story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Multiple people. Like,
yeah.
You're going to find your people.
Yep.
And it's cool. And like, the church isn't afraid to highlight those stories when it's relevant and when it's likely to, like, encourage somebody else. They've done it a bunch of times with various different things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is what is good about it is it shows, hey, there's people that came here looking for all sorts of things, looking for healing from something.
Yeah.
And we've just seen, I mean, you and I both over the years have seen a lot of people, healed in those ways.
Yep.
And that's the biggest thing, the biggest organization that I would recommend is Grace City,
Yeah.
or another local church,
Yeah.
this preaching the Bible and believing the Bible, and a church of the New Covenant.
Mm-hmm.
Go for it.
I was talking to somebody not too long ago. It's kind of off topic, but
Sure.
I was like, honestly, I feel about church the way I feel about two other things. Brushing your teeth and going to the gym.
Yeah.
I don't care where you work out.
Yeah.
And I don't care what toothpaste you use.
Yeah.
But please work out. Please brush your teeth.
That's funny. I hadn't thought about that before. That's good.
And please go to church somewhere. I don't care where.
Do I have permission to steal this?
Steal
and
it.
use
Take it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. The older I get, the more I recognize the need for it.
Mm-hmm.
And you skip sometimes. Like, it just happens. Like, maybe you go to the beach for the weekend or something like that. That next week you're just off.
Yep.
And it really is. That's why the people that say, "Oh, I have church in my home," it's like, I get it. That's the individual liberty conversation again. It's like, you do you. That's fine.
Yeah.
It's just not the same thing.
Yeah, you need a community.
You need a community. The church meets. The church is the people. It's not the building.
Yep.
And it's a big deal. So, and I am really encouraged to see that our church does lean into the recovery space so heavily and supports it so much, because it's a big difference to, rail against whatever it is and say, oh, this is a sin. It's a different thing altogether to actually put your money where your mouth is and do something about it.
Yeah.
And they do the same thing with, the mothers, the unwed mothers, that sort of thing. Like, it's great to say, oh, this is wrong. Like, everybody, whatever the issue is, not the unwed mothers part of it, but this is an issue. We should say, we should do something about it. It's another thing to actually get involved in it.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Well, thank you, sir.
Awesome. Thank you. That's great.